Alright, this is Free Alabama Movement once again dealing with the wrongful convictions, Alabama. What we've been doing lately, we started a new um, department called wrongful convictions, and what we're doing within wrongful convictions is we're profiling the criminal justice system, not only in the state of Alabama, but we're showing people how the criminal justice system works throughout the country. I've already featured some of this documentation in another interview where we were trying to discover issues dealing with the cause of death in my case. And so what I'm gonna be doing today is I'm gonna be breaking down the autopsy reports. There were two of them, so I'm gonna break both of those down, put a little information out there about the cause of death, just to show people how people. There is an assumption. I remember Chris Hedges. He said in an article one time. He said that the American people are deceived into thinking that when people are taken into the courtrooms in this country and prosecuted, that they're receiving due process. They know we have, you have to get a warrant from a magistrate. You have to get an indictment from a grand jury. You have to receive an attorney, and you have rules of court and statutes. But what Chris Hedges was pointing out is that even though you have all these rules, what people don't understand is that these rules are not applied as they are written. And I'll just give you an example. They say that you must have an arrest warrant to get someone's arrest, but you must go before a magistrate, file an affidavit in order to get the arrest warrant. You must show probable cause. But the magistrate works with the police on a day-to-day basis, and they're issuing out these arrest warrants, finding probable cause when there is no grounds, there is no basis, there is no facts, there is nothing but this officer standing there saying, "Hey, we need an arrest warrant." This is, and they're signing off on this, and people are being, people are spending the rest of their lives in prisons because of it. But you don't see that when police brutality comes into play. These officers running around killing people, unarmed people in the street. You see how the system is supposed to work then. It's supposed to be a thorough investigation. There's supposed to be, X amount of days before the case goes for a grand jury. But when you're dealing with black people in poor communities, the indictments, the arrest warrants, all that stuff done overnight. That you be on jail before the 5 o'clock evening news come on. But you see in these cases where it's these police officers, it's months and months and months and months and months. But their cases are live broadcast, actually, right here for the whole world to see. So I'm gonna just first I'm gonna start with something else that's been in the news. These crime laboratories around the country. Here is a crime lab in the state of Alabama. Alabama had lost their accreditation for several years. This audit was conducted February 19th through the 21st in 2002. These are the people who were involved, and this is the agency that conducted the audit report for the Alabama Department of Correction. This was just the Mobile Crime Laboratory, and you can see, and I had showed y'all that this statement here. You see, someone was asking the question why, and this is the question. It says, "Note that the findings and observations in this report are for pre-decisional purpose only. An escape clause to get you off the hook in case the report is discovered and there are questions about non-implementation." So right off the bat, you see a conspiracy here on the part of the auditing agency. This is the agency that'll certify this laboratory is in compliance with all state, federal standards, protocols, up to date. And then here's just some of the things. It said in most areas, the workspaces are inadequate for the scientists. Many work areas are cluttered. That's just one. Let's see. Here's another one. There was no proficiency test in 2001 for latent prints. The toxicology section had instances in which their results of proficiency tests were inconsistent with the vendor's reported results. Documentation of corrective action taken was not readily apparent. It should be noted that corrective action documentation is important for both false positives and false negative results. And so just, basically what that's saying, and that's just two, I just flipped it open, and it's showing you that fingerprint evidence, if there are people with fingerprint evidence who are incarcerated in Alabama and their fingerprint analysis went through that laboratory, there's a chance that if they were identified for a crime out of that laboratory, it's probably false. But you don't see any of that on the news. You haven't heard about it. There's no investigation. All of these things go on behind the scenes and cause thousands and thousands and thousands of people to lose their lives. And so the reason why I'm pointing that out, let me see. I probably can just flip it open somewhere. Okay. Here's one. It says the forensic biology section uses interpretation of screening tests that are not generally accepted in the field or supported by data. Now, the test is a preliminary test for semen. So that means that there are people potentially in prison with rape cases where semen testing was done out of this laboratory, and they just told you this is not up to par. This is not what's going on. But how many people have you saw receive any kind of relief? You're not seeing it. And so remember, they gave them escape clause right off the top. Here's you an escape clause. Here's how you can get away with it. This is how we do business in the dirty, dirty South. And so that's what's going on. And so what we have here today, in my case, is this. All right. There's one autopsy report. Here's another. We'll start here. Autopsy case number 99 HV0183. This is the same one. Case number 99 HV103. Says see original report 99 HV01803, which is this one. The original report says cause of death: asphyxiation due to exclusion of oxygen, homicide. Same person, cause of death: gunshot wound to the neck, homicide. And so what you're seeing is two different causes of death, two different autopsy reports by two different medical examiners. The first medical examiner here, Stephen Postilnick, a doctor who was the head of the Cooper Green Hospital. The second one is JC Upshaw Downs, who was the department director and chief medical examiner for the Alabama Department of Corrections. And so you got two different autopsy reports, two different causes of death in my trial, and only one victim. And again, this is the audit report from the Department of Forensic Laboratories, and you see that they are acknowledging all of the deficiencies in their laboratory. Okay, so by the time I go to trial, the original pathologist who conducted the first autopsy report, which is Stephen Downs, he never appeared at trial. We don't know what happened to him, why he didn't come to trial. His autopsy report was not admitted into evidence, nor was the second autopsy report. The state did not admit any autopsy report establishing even what the cause of death was. But what they did do was they changed the indictment in my case, came back with a second indictment, changed the cause of death, came back with a second cause of death. And as I explained in the earlier video on who informed the state, they lied to us about where the information came from, even about a gunshot. We never saw any projectiles. They said they discovered one. They never brought that. The autopsy report never came in. They never explained who was the person that provided them with the gunshot information. They lied about it. Once we proved the documents that they were lying, then they changed their story. So we're still trying to find out who are the people that provided this information. But the issue in this video, what we're covering here, is simply what is the cause of death. You see all of these autopsy findings by Dr. Postilnick. He said he found hemorrhages. He found bilateral hemorrhages. He found intramuscular tongue hemorrhage, involvement in fire. A lot of the findings in this report were disputed in the findings in the second report, so far as forced trauma, injuries, and whatnot. But these issues have not been resolved in the courtroom, and outside of court, I've been filing on this consistently over the last 15 years now, without success. But what I was able to do, I was able to track Dr. Postilnik down. This is email from Dr. Postilnik. You can see it's from Dr. Postilnik, who is now the chief medical examiner in Texas, out of the state of Texas. And this is what he said. This is one of the things that he said. He said that, I'm going to turn this sideways so y'all can see this. He said, I have no animosity toward the DA either. He said, they were duped by him as well as the rest of the state. Also, your client's first defense team should have realized the game being played and not have allowed it. Now, who he's talking about being duped by is this man right here, Dr. JC Upshaw Downs. He was the chief medical examiner of the state of Alabama at the time I went to trial. He has since been impeached. A lot of the issues that were going on in the Department of Forensic Science that were exposed were some of the things that they were talking about in these audit reports here, where they said that they were providing him with an escape clause to get you off the hook in case the report is discovered and there are questions about non-implementation. And I've already showed y'all all of the deficiencies in the fingerprinting analysis, the DNA collection, the semen, firearms, you name it. I'm gonna just flip the page and just read the section that I've got highlighted so you all can see just how much is going on. It says the toxicology section and medical examiner's lab have areas of their laboratories which are shared with the hospital and or hospital staff. These two areas do not have controlled and limited access, since hospital staff can readily access these areas. And what they're saying is that these areas are not secured. They're subject to contamination. Right here, the laboratory did not have a criterion file prepared. Several members of the staff that were interviewed voiced displeasure with the audit process and the move toward accreditation. They didn't even want to be accredited. And it says one individual felt that such audit just made things worse for her program. And these are scientists who are responsible for carrying out these scientific testing for the state of Alabama. Go to another part of Dr. Postilnik's email that he forwarded to me. He said, I told the D-Day that there certainly looked like a bullet and that I would come to trial and state that it was a bullet that I did not retrieve. He said, but that there was no blood in the head or neck and no injuries to major vessels. Therefore, I am of the opinion that the bullet may have been a coup de grace or post-mortem and may have contributed. But the main cause of death was still the beating and asphyxia. And I showed you all in the trial testimony from Dr. Downs. He said there was no beating, there was no asphyxia, there was no blunt force trauma. But as I pointed out, my attorney did not question this guy. He did not investigate. He did not interview him. He did not subpoena these files. None of this stuff was ever admitted at my trial. And here's another one. He says, I stand by my original conclusions. And he said that he can, if you want to take my deposition on the record out here, that's okay. Injuries of this exact type from a gunshot wound are survivable in 30% of cases, 70% fatal. Couple that with the findings that there were no significant injuries around the wound tract and no major vascular injury, more likely than not the cause of death was beating. The gunshot wound may have contributed in some lesser unknown percentage. So a lot of discrepancies between these two doctors, between these two autopsy reports, but the problem is both doctors were not at trial, and one of them didn't show up, and neither one of these autopsy reports were viewed by my jury. I'm gonna go to the trial transcript and show you all when the jury stopped deliberation. This is what they said. These is the questions that they asked. I'm gonna get the trial transcript just a second. Now, this is page 708 in my trial transcript. You see Huntsville, Alabama. This is what the court is reading now. It says we have the court. He said, I have been given a document containing 2 questions submitted by you, which is the jury. He said there appears to be 2 questions. The first question is, who informed investigators or the district attorney that the victim had been shot? As I've already shown, they never answered that question. The second question, I'm gonna get to the second question. Here's what the second question was. They wanted to know who Wait a minute, hold on, let me find it for you. Attorney Evidence Counsel. That's second. Okay, here's what the jury said. And the second part of the sheet you have given to me asks, can we see or review Dr. Downs' autopsy report? And this is what the judge responded. Ladies and gentlemen, I will submit to you, you have received all of the exhibits that have been introduced. If that document is not in there, then unfortunately you are not able to review it. So what that means is my jury had questions about the cause of death. My jury had questions about where did this gunshot information miraculously all of a sudden come from, and you hear the judge saying there was no evidence on that. That evidence was not submitted at trial. And these are actual trial documents. You can pull them up and look them up and review them for yourself. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that you would think, based on the stuff that you see on the news, the rules, and all of these different things that they tell you, well, this is how we prosecute, and he's afforded a fair trial, and he's afforded a competent lawyer, and this and that. You would think that something like this and such a significant issue at trial would not be so haphazardly handled. But the facts and the record show that these people can't even tell me how the person that I'm in prison for being accused of murdering, they can't even tell me how this man was killed. You know, I have a doctor saying that's wrong, they're lying. I have audit reports showing that these people were not adequately trained, that the laboratories were not sufficient. We have all of these different issues, problems, facts, and it's all, and we can't get resolution. I filed petition after petition after petition after petition. Never been afforded an evidentiary hearing in state court. Never been allowed to examine Dr. Downs or Dr. Pastilnik about these autopsies and all of this evidence that I found after the fact. And yet here I continue to remain inside Alabama Department of Corrections. So again, that's just one of the issues that we've covered in the okay. That's just one of the issues that we've covered in this wrongful convictions Alabama that we're profiling here. And so I just wanted to put these facts out there. The transcript in full will be available to you on the website. We encourage you to read it, get your own, get your own understanding, because I'm just giving a paraphrase, a short summary of what actually went on. You'll see so many contradictions in these autopsy reports that it'll make your head spin to the point where you'll be thinking, did they even view the same body? And a lot of this stuff has to do with the fact that their evidence, their scientific evidence, refuted their witnesses. Their witnesses were saying there was a struggle. All of this, I was in this place, I was in that place, I touched this, I touched that. When all of the evidence came back and showed that the witness that they were relying on to get their arrest warrants, to get their indictments, to get their convictions, when the scientific evidence showed that these people were lying, when some of this evidence was sent to the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and all of this stuff came back, the trace evidence and things like that was sent to the Department, Federal Bureau of Investigation. When all of this stuff came back showing that this witness was lying, they said, okay, well, we'll just change the cause of death. Because if they're saying that I asphyxiated someone, then quite naturally there would be all type of DNA involved. There would be evidence of a struggle. There would be defensive wounds. There would be all of these things. But when all of that came back negative to me, it did not come back negative. It just came back negative to me. And so the co-defendant, Fred Bass, when all of this evidence come back from these laboratories saying we have Fred Bass fingerprints, we have cuts and scratches on Fred Bass' head, they said, okay, well, we'll change the cause of death. And that way, if you say the man was shot as opposed to asphyxiated, then that will explain the absence of DNA evidence for me. So that's the way that they explain it. They's like, okay, well, if they say that I grabbed someone or grabbed something and picked it up and whatever, my DNA is supposed to be on that. Well, and that's how the person killed. They say I grabbed a person around the neck or took something and asphyxiated them. Well, they would have my fingerprints, my DNA, the struggle, and the victim was, I think, about 6 foot, 200 something pounds, and so they're saying me 5'9", 160 pounds, asphyxiated this person. There would be, wound scratches. When that didn't occur, so they said, okay, well, he didn't do it that way. He shot him. Well, with the gunshot, there's not going to be any DNA. There's not going to be any physical struggle. There's not going to be any of these things. And that's how they're trying to justify this second autopsy report. But let me show you something in this autopsy report. You see, I'm going to close with this. All right, they're saying that they discovered this man's body on March 27th, 1999. This is the day that the autopsy was conducted. This autopsy was conducted in January 2001. And I'm just going to show you all just how egregious this man is lying, manufacturing false evidence. And like he said, if that my attorney should have recognized that this medical examiner was fraudulent. This is almost 2 years after this man died, and this is what Dr. Downs said. I want to make sure I find it. This man said, internally, the wound passes through the soft tissue of the neck. Fresh blood is associated with the wound tract. This man is saying that in August 22nd, 2000, that he found fresh blood. Where it is again? He said he found fresh blood associated with the wound tract almost 2 years after this man was dead. 2 years after this man was dead, he said he found fresh blood associated with the wound tract. I'm not even a scientist. I don't work for the Department of Forensic Science, but I know that you are not going to find fresh blood. The man was, body was found in March of 1999, so that's March, April, May, June, July, August. That's 17 months later. This man said he found fresh blood associated with the wound tract to justify his claim that this man died from a gunshot. He said that the vertebrae was shattered. He's so, I can't even. It's frustrating to attempt to try to describe and define all of the issues with this. But I'm going to close with that. I just wanted to point that out, that there are issues with this cause of death. There are issues with these autopsy reports. There are issues with these doctors. And we're trying to get these issues resolved. We're trying to bring justice in this case. It's not easy. It is a constant struggle. But that's what Free Alabama Movement is here for. That's the movement. And this is our job. This is what we're working on.